Hey guys, this is going to be a review of the Francis Barker M73 compass and somewhat of a comparison of the Cammenga 3H, the tritium version, but it is based and mainly going to be about the Francis Barker. So the Francis Barker, closest down in here to the left, is made in the UK. The company was formed back in 1848. They have a pretty cool history. They made some sundials for people like Charles Dickens. They made some compasses for Dr. Livingstone for his Africa expeditions. So they've been doing this for a while. The compass itself is used by the British military. It's still used currently. The Cammenga, of course, we all know that it is definitely still used and is a tried and true compass as well. But anyway, back to the Francis Barker. Some specifics about it: it's solid brass. The weight, I'd hate to tell you the wrong weight, but I think it's 300 grams, but don't quote me on that. You're welcome to get all that information on the website. It's a prismatic compass, which means when you sight, rather than just glancing down, which you can do, you actually look through the prism here to take a reading. And though I don't think it'll come out here on video, I promise you it does. You look through this little area there and you can take a very clear, accurate reading, place the sighting line, and take your bearing. While we're at it there, this one's in degrees. The accuracy is unbelievable. You can get a 1 degree accuracy often. It's very easy. You can also get down to, I think, about 1/4 of a degree if you have a way to keep things steady. When taking the sighting, this line right there is actually etched into the glass right there. And if you notice, top and bottom of the screen, there's 2 little kind of circles. If that glass were to break, you can actually tie a string and still be able to take an accurate field reading. Yeah, the build quality and the details of this compass are they're amazing. It's also one of the reasons that it's considered one of the world's finest handheld compasses. And I've had a number of compasses, and I do believe it is easily the finest I've ever seen. And it would be hard pressed to find one that I think is any finer. But moving along from that, the internal part, it's actually filled with a filtered kerosene. So it does have liquid, which I actually prefer, because when you do take a reading, it's more steady than the dry dial as the Cammenga. So that's just a personal preference. If it were to leak, it's supposedly pretty easy to refill with the purified kerosene again, but I've not had to deal with that. Other details about it: the bottom has a base that's got rubber, and I like that right there. You can set it on a map and it doesn't move around as much. Again, it's a personal preference. They've got 5 tritium markers. There's one at the top here. I'm sorry, they're to the left at north. There's another one further up all the way there for night navigation. There's one on the dial right there. And then there's, bear with me here, another one way up on the top right here. Another feature that I find very helpful is actually the dial right here. So if you want to navigate at night or you want to set a bearing, you can slide this accurately, not like the Cammenga, which is great, not dissonant, but it has 3 degree increments when it clicks. Whereas here, you can get it down to wherever you want. And then you turn this dial right here, and it sets it, and it stays put. That little dial right there. Here's an example of the Cammenga. When you turn the dial, it clicks. Hear that? And every click is 3 degrees. So that can actually be a plus or minus depending on who you talk to. But personally, I prefer the Francis Barker, and I don't like plastic. And this bezel ring is plastic. I'm sure it's tough, but I definitely prefer the metal feeling of the Francis Barker. Some pros of the Francis Barker: the accuracy is unlike any other handheld compass I've ever used. Being able to get to easily a 1 degree accuracy, or half a degree, and even to a 1/4 degree, that's wonderful. I like that the dial is filled with liquid. It doesn't shake as much. Sometimes my hands are a little shaky, and on the Cammenga, it's a little harder to get a reading whenever I've been exerting myself, maybe after I've walked hard or I've been running. Even my heart rate will have the compass doing things like that, and it's kind of difficult to get a reading. So I actually prefer the liquid filled casing of the Francis Barker. I like that the siding line is etched into the glass, and that if it were to break, there's the actual holes that you could install a string or an additional wire. I like that. The feel of it, the feel of the Francis Barker, that's really what it's about. It's really difficult to explain other than it's just pure quality. It feels wonderful. It's a joy to use. When you're taking a siding, it's smooth. When you're holding it in your hand, it has substance. That's that solid brass. Every part on it that is meant to do something does it exceptionally well. It has a very well engineered feel, and I won't be able to get that for you in a video. I've just got to tell you, if you do get one or you ever have a chance to hold one, you'll know exactly what I mean. There's nothing else like it in a compass. Here's some close-ups of it. You can notice that when you're reading the degrees from the top, closest to the center of the dial, it's easy to read. And then on the outer dial, it's reversed, and that's because of that prismatic function that we were talking about earlier. The case itself is a little firm to shut. It's got some nice resistance, and then it clicks shut. And once it's shut, it's a little difficult to open, so here's, I'm going to shut it totally. There, it clicks. It is not opening accidentally at all, and it would absolutely take both hands to do it, to open it up. So I'm just going to set that back down. Get you some good views of it here. Those screws, everything's replaceable. All of this, every little bit. They sell pieces, replacement parts, so they don't have to buy the entire compass. I think that's great. Of course, this one's not been used long enough to actually have anything broken on it, but it will probably happen at some point. Now the Cammenga, this review really isn't about it, but just to compare it, I think it's a great compass, absolutely wonderful. And up until the Francis Barker came into my life, this was my favorite compass. It's easy to use. They're pretty easy to find. You can get them at Army surplus stores. You can get them online. You want the real deal, of course. And if you're watching this, that's probably all you're even considering. It's lighter by a little bit. I'm not sure how much, but it is aluminum versus brass, so it is a little bit lighter. The siding mechanism is, I definitely can't say I prefer it, but it is easy to use. It's maybe a little user-friendly. If you've never used a compass or in an emergency situation, this might be a little bit easier for someone to use. So, say you want to take a bearing of, okay, that's interesting. Well, this isn't a good example. Okay, I put it down too far. There we go. If you put the siding magnifying glass down just a little too far, it locks the actual dial, and I've never actually tried to use it that far down, and that's what it did. Okay, so okay, it's a little difficult to show you, but I promise you it's easy to take a reading through there. You just look through the magnifying glass, sight up like this, and you can take an extremely accurate reading. They're marked in 5-degree increments on the dial there. Let's see. Say there we've got like 100, 105, and 110. And then in mils, you've got, those are in increments of 20, all the way up to 6,400, which would be 360 degrees. And that is right about there. I really can't say anything. I can't say anything bad about this compass. Just the only thing I'm not real keen on is the plastic dial, and that's absolutely personal preference. I don't know that that's a quality thing. I do know that when it gets submerged in water, that water does get behind the top part. It does not make it into the actual dial itself, but it does get behind this outer part here that spins around. I've not taken the Francis Barker underwater, so I don't know what it'll do. But again, this isn't a review about the Cammenga. There's plenty of those online. It's a great compass. The difference in cost is pretty drastic. A Cammenga, you can get the ones that are not tritium, and you can get them as under $100, anywhere from $100 to $150 with tritium, versus the Francis Barker that you're lucky to find in the first place. And if you do find it, you're likely to spend $450, but you can find them for under maybe $330, $350, but that's difficult and not always something you can rely on. But let's see, that is the basic, I guess, of that review. I hope you bear with me on that. That was my first YouTube video, so I hope they can only get better, actually. So if you have any comments, put them in the, write them down. If you want to see something else, let me know. If you want me to go over something a little bit more in detail, I'll be glad to. If you're seriously considering the Francis Barker, I can't recommend it enough. Go ahead, absolutely get it when you can find it. I will also say it is not necessary to have the Francis Barker or the Cammenga. The Cammenga, it will do everything you need. But if you want to go one step further and you want to absolutely just truly enjoy using it much more, I would liken it more to like maybe a Rolls Royce. It's just a pleasure to use the Francis Barker. And the Cammenga will get the job done. It's reliable, it's durable. A lot of people have them. And you can, if you're in a group, it's more likely that others can use it with you. Oh, here's the other thing. This is important. The Protractor. If you're using the Francis Barker, you pretty much need to have a Protractor and be able to use it effectively. If you're just doing if you're mapping your own area, you might not need the Protractor, but to use it really well, you're going to have a Protractor. It's wonderful, though. I believe it's more accurate, and it's my preferred way of actually navigating and taking readings. And that is actually the point that pushed me over to get the Francis Barker, because even with the Cammenga, you don't have to do that. You orient the map, or you can use, of course, a Protractor as well, but you don't need to with the Cammenga. But I always found myself always using the Protractor, so here, that pushed me over the edge right there. The other thing, the Cammenga comes with the standard nylon case, nothing fancy, but it does work. I'd love to have something made, maybe have a leather case made for it. The Francis Barker, on the other hand, comes with this pretty nice case. I believe they call it genuine leather, but genuine leather really, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think genuine leather really just means that it's made of parts of leather, like kind of like a little leftovers and slivers of leather compressed. But it's not a bad case. Like, that's something else I probably like to have commissioned, just have a nice leather case made for it that's of a different quality. But anyhow, it's a better case than this, I believe. Again, any questions, comments, post them, and I look forward to hearing from y'all. Thank you.